President, I want to get a chance to have just a moment to be able to reflect on what the Senate has just completed. We've worked through a process of identifying what's called Congressional Review Acts. Now, most Americans are not familiar with this because it's so seldom used. In fact, it's only been used one time before this Congress successfully. It's a moment for the Congress to be able to look back at a regulation that's been promulgated by the administration and say, was that the intent of the law? It's something we've worked for a long time to be able to get as a frequent part of this national conversation, something we call the REINS Act, that allows Congress to be able to look at each major regulation when it comes out from the administration and ask the simple question: when the regulations are created, are they consistent with the statute? That's what regulations are. No administration can just invent policy and say, we think this is a good thing to do. That is the task of Congress. That's why the Constitution says all legislative powers shall reside in the Congress, because an administration can't make up the law. It has to come from this body and from the House of Representatives and then be signed by the president. After that is done, then regulations are created that have to be consistent with the law. The Congressional Review Act was created years ago to allow Congress to have a second glance at regulations as they're put out and say, is that consistent with the statute that we passed? This Congress has already gone through multiples of those. On those last 6 months of the Obama administration, many regulations were created. And when they were created, they were not consistent with the statute. This Congress has already turned back billions of dollars of regulations on the American people. One of those, again, was done this week. Ironically, it's an issue that deals with unemployment benefits and drug testing. Many states have requested the ability to be able to do drug testing for unemployment benefits. And this is not a situation where this Congress believes that all people on unemployment benefits need to be drug tested or are unemployed because of drug use. Far from that. In 2012, Congress passed the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act. In that, it allowed states, if they chose to, they don't have to, but if they chose to do drug testing for benefits eligibility for unemployment benefits under two circumstances. One of them is if the applicant was terminated from their employment based on the unlawful use of a controlled substance. So in other words, if they were just fired from a previous job because they were using drugs, they wouldn't be available immediately to be able to get unemployment benefits because they've already been certified as a drug user. The second one is that if the only available suitable work meant that they had to be drug tested, then they could be drug tested. What's the design of this? The design of the policy was to encourage people to be able to get back to work. If they were fired from a previous job because they used drugs, it's a natural thing to say, before you can get unemployment benefits, we want to make sure that you've gotten off drugs since that time period you were fired. Or if the only job that's available to you in your targeted area you will be drug tested for, you're not available to be able to take that job if you haven't already had some sort of drug testing. It's a common sense measure, and it was given to the states to say to the states, you can choose to do this or not choose to do this, but if you choose to do it, you can. Because unemployment benefits are a partnership between the federal government and local states. We believe this is one tool of many to be able to help people that are trapped in the addiction of drugs to have one more incentive to be able to get off that addiction. Multiple different methods are also used within states to be able to walk alongside families and alongside individuals to be able to help them get off their substance abuse habits as well. But it is a powerful motivator to say to people, if we want to get you some support into your family to help you transition back into a job, the law says that to be on unemployment benefits, you have to be available for work. And if this person is currently addicted to drugs and using drugs, they're not available for work. This measure was passed in 2012. The Obama administration took 4 years to promulgate the rules off this common sense measure. And once they did finally promulgate the rules, they created a set of rules so complex, so complicated, with so many exceptions that are built into it that the rule meant nothing. So it put us in a situation of saying what Congress passed 4 years ago, we actually wanted to actually go into effect to give those states the right to be able to do it. So this Congress, from the House of Representatives in an overwhelming vote, and this week from the United States Senate, also voted to be able to lock out that last-minute regulation from the Obama administration, which they took 4 years to promulgate, and to be able to say again to states, if you choose to do drug testing with someone who was fired from a previous job because of drug use, or because the only job available is a person that will have drug testing, if you want to help families be able to get off substance abuse and to be able to set this standard for them, you can again. We have an epidemic of drug use in our nation. We should do everything we can to not only deal with interdiction of drugs coming into the country, but to also deal with the use of drugs in our country. This is one of those measures, and I'm glad that my state and other states will now again have that opportunity to be able to use this.